type, if you might say, in mind. This is exactly what they would look like. And I was like, that's just so funny that their name is Zach. And my settings, I had it set to like, I think it's guys, girls, and non-binary. Like, I think that might have been a setting or something like that. Or gender non-conforming. So I had that setting on. So it's like, at first, when I first saw their pictures, I didn't know that they were trans. Like, I kind of just perceived them to be as more of like a feminine person. But then I like read down and I was like, oh, like they're trans non-binary. Like, that's so cool. So at that time, they asked me, they're like, when we started chatting, they were like, oh, my pronouns are they, them. What pronouns do you go by? And I was like, honestly, I don't really know. But I know that I identify as an alien. So,
yes,
work something with that.
I used to answer that question that way. Oh my gosh, I remember
yes,
that. Yes. Would be like, what?
Yeah.
What are you, you know? You'd be like, an alien.
An alien.
Wow, blast from the past.
So that was my favorite answer. So they're like, okay, like I'll work with that. So like, you know, we got it started chatting and like whatever. And then like at the beginning of the relationship, I feel that I was very like nervous and I almost felt like restrained. And I felt restrained because of my own conditioning and the way that like I was brought up to be. Because, you know, as I said, like I was always perceived as a gay boy, you know, and it's like depending on the relationship, I either took on a more nurturing role or I took on like, you know, a more submissive role, or, you know, like how it would be described. So there was always these roles and there was always like these societal like conditionings that I followed by kind of. So for me, it was kind of shocking because I was like, I don't know if I'm being too much of something or if I'm not, you know, like I was afraid that I was just being either too feminine or not feminine enough, or like not masculine enough. Like I always had like these ideologies like in my head, like constantly playing in the back of my mind. And I saw my partner, Zach, they were just so comfortable within themselves, you know, and it's like they wore what they want, like they did their makeup and it's like they felt confident in themselves. And it's like, oh my God, like that's so sexy to me. Like that's so sexy to me. And it's like, I admire that and I love that. And then it was actually when, because they had asked me to a concert for our first date. So a couple months later, I took them to a live podcast of Wine and Crime. So we went to go and see this podcast live. And like when we got back in the car, because it's called Wine and Crime, I obviously like got a little tipsy. Don't worry, I took an Uber there and then they took me home, but I got a little bit tipsy. And I was just like, you know, I've been thinking a lot lately and I think I'm non-binary. And they're like, yeah, like, oh my God, like, that's so great. And they're like, you know, like, what pronouns do you want to go by? I was like, I want to go by they, them. Like, I was like, this just feels right. Like, this just feels right. So basically then was like when I stepped into it and it was just like, you know, it just made me more uncomfortable. And it's actually, okay, I can't jump down that area of my life. But I just became more comfortable with it from there on out. And, you know, everybody was very like widely accepting of it. And it's like people like, I guess they were able to see it, whatever that means. But it's like, you know, people saw it within me, you know, they saw that I was more like gender non-conforming. So being slowly as the relationship has progressed, I've stopped feeling the need to fulfill these certain social ideologies and, you know, like these constrictions that wouldn't allow me to be myself, when it's just like, you know, there's no boundaries, like, you know, like, and I mean that in the best way possible, is that like there is no boundaries in the sense where it's like I don't feel like I have to conform to anything. Like I can solely and truly just like live my best life, you know. It's like I am living my truth and I can wear makeup when I want to, I can wear skirts, fishnets, whatever I want when I want to, and I can fully live my truth around my partner. And it's just like that within itself is so fulfilling, and not having to like to just be ourselves around each other is like literally one of the best things. And I think that both of us being transgender and non-binary, like we've only grown within our identities and only have grown around each other. So I feel like over time it's just turned into something really like beautiful, and I love it so much because we're just both unique in our own way and we get to live that. And I feel like it's the best.
I love that. That makes me so happy. And I love the fact that you don't feel like you have to perform some kind of role. You can just be with your partner the way you want to be with your partner, and that's that. So that's beautiful.
Exactly.
I love it.
Thank you.
I want to jump into talking a little bit about the podcast, because you were the one who inspired me. I didn't really think I would ever be doing something where it involved me talking for a long period of time. I had a little insecurity about that. But hearing you speak, yes, and just hearing how you spoke about it really inspired me and really drove me to want to do something like this. And yeah, so I just want to ask you a couple of questions. Like, what first got you into podcasting?
So what first got me into podcasting is that I have this friend who told me that she started listening to this podcast called And That's Why We Drink. So basically the podcasters, Christine and M. Schultz, M covers paranormal stories, and they're also non-binary and identify by they, them pronouns. And their friend Christine covers true crime stories. You know, that was my first exposure to true crime podcasts, and it kind of the spooky aspect of the podcasting world. And before this, I've never listened to podcasts, so that just really interested me. And then she recommended Wine and Crime, which is I'm always talking about them, I feel but basically they're three friends who chug wine, chat true crime, and unleash their worst Minnesotan accent.
Yes.
So it's just I love listening to them, and I love how just blatantly out there they are, and how honest they are. And it's just I just feel by listening to them, it's really been insightful, and shows that there can be a way to properly deliver true crime and let people know about true crime. And I feel it's honestly the modern way to ingest true crime. And it's thinking about true crime comedy podcasts, you're kind of oh, how do you blend the two? And it's just obviously I don't know how to fucking do that, but it's the fact that they do it so well was just such an inspiration for me. And them, and one of them being non-binary, and then them being women, I just like I said, I love women, so it was really amazing for me to see true crime and
I just love women.
I just love women. They're so great. But
women, we love you.
Women, we love you. Oh my god, yes. Yeah.
Can that just be the slogan?
Little slogan
for our podcast.
Women,
we need t-shirts.
We love you. T-shirts now.
Put it on a t-shirt.
Yeah, but that's what started my love for true crime podcasting, and that's kind of what really sparked my interest in it.
So when you find a story, what stands out about one that makes you think, okay, I need to make this into one of the episodes?
I think for me, my inspiration for the episodes come for, the type of person it's affecting. I think that it comes from things that we're experiencing in modern day, even if they're from back then. I think, this is still happening, so we have to bring this to light because it's obviously it hasn't gone away and we just don't know about it. Or also if it affects the marginalized or oppressed group of people is really what makes me want to bring it to light. Just because I feel as if there's not really there is a lot of that out there, but I really just want to focus on giving exposure to the communities that need it, so that way we can keep a lookout and know the signs and, be aware and be mindful, and it's I just want to talk about the things that wouldn't really normally, not normally be talked about, but it's just the harder topics that it's kind of hard to ingest. I really just want to bring those to light because I know people may not have exposure to that kind of crime, or they may not even know about it. Our episode Gay Panic Defense, that was atrocious and it was just awful, and it's a lot of people don't know about that. So speaking on those kinds of things is really why I get inspired by stories and bringing them to light. And, what the things that need to be talked about, I want them to happen here.
What is one message you want your audience to take away from the podcast?
That your voice deserves to be heard.
Beautiful.
Regardless of what part of community you're a part of, your voice deserves to be heard. Whether it's Dylan telling their art segment, whether it's me telling somebody's story from true crime, whether it's good news, bad news, everybody's voice deserves to be heard. With an open mind. Whoa! Is the message I want to be taken away.
Okay, so that is all of my questions for Zach today. Thank you so much for being such a wonderful interviewee, for being so open with me and sharing so many beautiful, juicy details about your person. Is there a spotlight foundation that you want to bring attention to this episode?
The organization that I would like to spotlight would be the Queer Art Foundation. And the reason why is because I've always felt like an art kid. Even though it's not like visual art, I've always just felt like an art kid in so many different ways. So basically, the Queer Art is a nonprofit arts organization serving diverse and vibrant community of the LGBTQ plus artists across generations and disciplines. You can find their website at queer-art.org, and they have a support button where you can make a donation. So also thank you so much for interviewing me, Dylan. I feel like you had such great questions, and I honestly just felt so comfortable to talk to you. It was like talking to you on any other day for long periods of time. But I loved it. And, thank you just for being a part of Whisper Podcast and believing that the idea meant something and that you're also just as passionate about I am. And I'm just so grateful to have you as a host on this podcast with me.
Oh, shucks.
Oh, shucks.
Well, that is everything for today. Look forward to next week's episode, which is Next
week, we're going to be talking about a wonderful lady that Dylan is going to be introducing to us. Her name is Miss Faith Ringgold, and you guys are honestly going to love the story that we have about her. Dylan did such an amazing job. So you guys can look forward to that episode on the 26th. We are Whisper Podcast. Bye!
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Whisper Podcast. We're Zach and Dylan, and you can find us at Whisper Podcast on Instagram and on Twitter at Whisper_podcast. Visit our website and blog at thewhisperpodcast.com. Interested in chatting with us live? Send us a DM at one of the social sites or reach out at whisperwfpodcast@gmail.com with potential interviewee stated in the subject line. Cover art by Dylan Gomez. Editing by Zach Tyler. Music by Audionautics.com. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, and SoundCloud. Love the show? Please rate, review, and subscribe to us on Apple Podcast. We are a completely independent show, and if you'd like to give your support for the show and get a shout out on air with a special gift, you can find us at Whisper Podcast on Patreon.com.
Zach and Dylan are not licensed professionals, nor do we claim to be. Podcast is intended for entertainment purposes only. If you or a loved one are in need of immediate help, we recommend that you contact a licensed professional or a hotline pertaining to your needs, which can be found on our website under the Help Is Here tab.